I work as a traveling nurse, which means I spend about 70% of my time on the road, moving between hospitals that need temporary staff. I'm 31, making around $85,000 a year, and I've stayed in more motels than I can count. You get used to the routine: check in late, sleep, check out early. Most places blend together after a while. This happened in March 2023, outside of Amarillo, Texas. I'd just finished a 3-month contract at a hospital in Oklahoma City and was driving to my next assignment in Phoenix. I left around 4 p.m., planning to drive straight through, but by 11:30 p.m., I was exhausted. My GPS showed I was still 2 hours from the next major city, so I took an exit that advertised gas and lodging. The exit led to one of those towns that's basically just a truck stop and a couple of businesses off the highway. The only motel was called the Cactus Motor Lodge. Single story, maybe 20 units in an L shape around the parking lot. The sign out front was one of those vintage ones, the kind with the neon cactus that probably looked cool in 1965, but now just looked dated. I parked my Subaru out back in front of the office and went inside. The front desk was empty, but there was a bell with a sign that said, "Ring for service." I rang it and waited. A guy came out from the back room. He was probably in his late 40s, thin, with receding hair and glasses. He wore a polo shirt with Cactus Motor Lodge embroidered on it and a name tag that said Dale Night Manager. "Need a room?" he asked. His voice was flat, not unfriendly, but not warm either. "Yeah, just for tonight. 1 bed is fine." He pulled out a registration card, the old-fashioned paper kind, not a computer system, and had me fill it out. "Cash or card?" he asked. I said card, and he ran it through one of those ancient slide machines. The whole process felt like stepping back in time. "You're in room 14, he said, handing me an actual metal key on a diamond-shaped keychain. "All the way at the end. Quiet spot." I thanked him and drove down to the far end of the L-shaped building. Room 14 was the last unit, with nothing but desert scrub beyond it. I unlocked the door and flipped on the light. The room was exactly what you'd expect. 1 queen bed with a floral comforter that had probably been there since the 90s. A tube TV on a dresser, a bathroom with pink tiles. It smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet, but it was clean enough. I dropped my overnight bag on the chair and plugged in my phone to charge. Around midnight, I got ready for bed, brushed my teeth, changed into pajamas, set my alarm for 6 a.m. As I was getting into bed, I noticed something on the nightstand, a binder. One of those 3-ring binders, plain black, with guest comments written on the spine in faded marker. I opened it, curious. Most motels don't keep physical guest books anymore. Inside were pages and pages of comments, handwritten entries dating back years. The first few pages were from 2018, 2019. Standard stuff: clean room, friendly staff. Good value for the price. Could use an update, but served its purpose. I flipped through more pages. 2020, 2021. The comments got weirder. "The night manager watched my room all night. Saw him through the window. Something about Dale isn't right. Trust your instincts. Do not stay in room 14. Leave if they try to put you here." My stomach dropped. I was in room 14. I kept reading. More warnings, all specifically about room 14 and the night manager. "He has keys to every room. Heard him outside my door at 3 a.m. Found my belongings moved while I was asleep. The lock doesn't work from the inside." I checked my door. The lock turned fine, the chain worked, but my heart was racing now. The most recent entry was from 2 weeks ago, February 2023. If you're reading this, get out now. Dale isn't normal. He's been arrested before for breaking into rooms. Google his name, Dale Hutchins. He's not supposed to be working anywhere near guests. I grabbed my phone and Googled Dale Hutchins Amarillo. The first result was a news article from the Amarillo Globe News, dated 2019. "Motel employee arrested for voyeurism, trespassing." I clicked it. The article described how Dale Hutchins, 44, had been arrested after multiple guests at a motel in Amarillo reported finding hidden cameras in their rooms and seeing him entering rooms without permission while guests slept. He'd pled guilty to misdemeanor trespassing and voyeurism, got probation and community service, and was banned from working in hospitality. That was 4 years ago, and here he was working the night shift at a motel under the same name. I looked at the door. Through the crack under it, I could see a shadow. Someone was standing outside my room. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. The shadow didn't move, just stood there. After maybe 30 seconds, I heard footsteps moving away, gravel crunching. I grabbed my bag, shoved my phone and charger in it, and moved to the window. I pulled the curtain back just enough to peek out. Dale was standing in the parking lot, about 20 feet away, facing my room. Just standing there in the darkness, hands in his pockets. I let the curtain fall and called 911. Whispered to the dispatcher that I was at the Cactus Motor Lodge, room 14, and the night manager was standing outside my room acting threatening. She said she'd send a unit. The shadow appeared under the door again. Then I heard it. The sound of a key sliding into the lock. The handle turned. The door pushed open about an inch before the chain caught it. "Everything okay in there?" Dale's voice came through the gap. Thought I heard something. "I'm fine," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please go away." "Just checking." Part of my job. The door closed and the shadow retreated. The police arrived 12 minutes later. I heard the crunch of tires, saw the red and blue lights flash through the curtain. I opened the door, still had the chain on, and called out that I was the one who'd called. 2 officers came over. I told them everything, the guest book, the article, Dale standing outside my room, him trying to come in. They went to the office and came back 20 minutes later. "Mr. Hutchins says he was doing a routine security check," one officer said. "Says he does it every night for all guests." "At midnight? And trying to open my door?" "He admits that was inappropriate. He's agreed to stay in the office for the rest of the night. We've advised him to contact the owner about proper protocols. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The officers offered to escort me to another motel, but the nearest one was 40 minutes back the way I'd come. I was too exhausted to drive. They waited while I packed, then watched me get in my car and followed me to a room closer to the office where they could see my door from the parking lot. I didn't sleep. I sat in the chair with the lights on, door locked, chain on, until 5 a.m. Then I loaded my car and left without checking out. A month later, I was in Phoenix and looked up the Cactus Motor Lodge online. Their Facebook page had new reviews, all 1 star. Night manager is creepy. Felt unsafe. Found camera and smoke detector. The most recent was from a woman who'd stayed there 2 weeks after me. The night manager entered my room while I was asleep. Woke up to him standing over my bed. He ran when I screamed. Police were called, but he was gone. Avoid this place. I reported it to the Texas Attorney General's office and sent them the article about Dale's prior conviction. Last I heard, the motel's business license was under review. But sometimes I wonder how many other motels he's worked at. How many other room 14s are out there with guest books full of warnings that nobody reads until it's too late. This happened to me and my boyfriend Ethan last November. We were driving from Seattle to Portland for Thanksgiving to visit his family. We left late, around 7 p.m., because Ethan had to work until 6. The drive should have taken 3 hours, but we hit terrible weather. Rain so heavy we could barely see the road. By 10 p.m., we were exhausted and stressed. Ethan suggested we just stop for the night and finish the drive in the morning. His parents would understand. We took an exit near Longview, Washington, and found a place called the Timberline Motor Inn. It was an older motel, 2 stories, with exterior walkways and stairs. The kind where your room door opens directly to the parking lot. The neon sign buzzed in the rain, half the letters flickering. We checked in at the front desk. The clerk was a woman in her 50s, friendly enough, with reading glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. She asked if we wanted smoking or non-smoking. We said non-smoking. "Non-smoking's all booked up," she said, clicking through her computer. "I've got a smoking room on the 2nd floor, room 218. It's been deep cleaned, shouldn't smell too bad." We weren't thrilled, but we were tired and it was late. We took it. Room 218 was at the far end of the 2nd floor. We parked directly below it and hauled our bags up the outdoor stairs. The rain had led up to a drizzle, but everything was wet and cold. The room did smell like smoke, but not fresh smoke. Old smoke, the kind that soaks into wallpaper and carpet over decades. Ethan opened a window to air it out while I checked the bathroom. Standard motel bathroom, tub shower combo, toilet, sink. The mirror had water spots and the grout was yellowed, but it was acceptable. We ordered pizza from a Domino's nearby and ate it sitting on the beds watching TV. One of those hotel cable packages with like 80 channels of nothing. We settled on a Seinfeld rerun and tried to relax. Around midnight, we got ready for bed. I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something weird. On the bathroom mirror, there was a faint outline of words, like someone had written in the steam and it had dried, but left a residue you could only see at certain angles. I wiped my hand across the mirror to clear the water spots, and the words became more visible. "Don't sleep here." I called Ethan. He came in, looked at it, and frowned. Probably just some kid messing around. "It says don't sleep here?" "Yeah, because kids are dramatic." He wiped it away with a towel. "Let's just get some sleep. We'll be out of here in the morning." But I couldn't shake it. I checked the rest of the bathroom more carefully. On the wall behind the toilet, near the floor where you'd only see it if you were really looking, someone had scratched words into the drywall. Tiny letters carved with something sharp. Room 218, carbon monoxide. "Ethan, look at this." He bent down, read it, and his face went pale. That's probably old. The motel's been here forever." "What if it's not old? What if that's why they put us in a smoking room when non-smoking was supposedly booked?" Carbon monoxide is odorless, colorless, and deadly. I'd learned about it in high school science class. Faulty heating systems, gas appliances, blocked vents. All could cause leaks. And smoking rooms often had older, less maintained equipment. I pulled out my phone and Googled Timberline Motor Inn Longview deaths. Found a news article from 2015. 2 guests found dead at Longview Motel. I clicked it. 2 people, a couple in their 60s, had been found dead in room 218 at the Timberline Motor Inn. Cause of death: carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty heating unit. The motel had been fined and ordered to install CO detectors in every room. "This is the same room," I said, showing Ethan the article. "Room 218. He read it, then looked at the heating unit under the window. It was one of those old wall-mounted units, the kind that makes clanking noises and blows out hot air that smells vaguely of metal. "There's supposed to be a detector," he said. "Look around." We searched the room. No carbon monoxide detector. There was a smoke detector on the ceiling, but when Ethan stood on a chair to check it, the battery compartment was empty. "We need to leave," I said. "Right now?" We packed our stuff in under 5 minutes. As we were loading the car, I noticed something. The windows of the other second-floor rooms were dark, curtains drawn, but you could tell they were empty. No cars parked beneath them, no lights, no signs of life. We were the only guests on the entire second floor. We drove to the front office. The same clerk was there, reading a paperback novel. "We need to check out," I said. "Now, something's wrong with room 218. She looked up, and for just a moment, I saw something in her expression. Not surprise, just resignation. "I'll process the refund." "You knew," Ethan said. "You knew that room was dangerous, and you put us there anyway." "The heating unit was inspected last year," she said, not meeting our eyes. "It passed. There's no carbon monoxide detector. They're on back order. Supply chain issues." "Bullshit," I said. "People died in that room. You're still renting it out without proper safety equipment." She printed out a receipt for the refund and slid it across the counter. "You're welcome to file a complaint with corporate." We left. Drove another hour to Portland in the rain, exhausted, angry, shaken. Called Ethan's parents from the car and told them what happened. His dad, who's a lawyer, filed a formal complaint with the Washington State Department of Health the next day. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a health inspector. They'd investigated the Timberline Motor Inn and found that 6 rooms, including room 218, had non-functional or missing carbon monoxide detectors. 3 of the rooms also had faulty heating units that were emitting unsafe levels of CO. The motel was temporarily shut down for safety violations. But here's what got me. The inspector said that when they interviewed the staff, the clerk, her name was Brenda, admitted that management knew about the issues but kept renting the rooms anyway because they couldn't afford the repairs. She'd been instructed to only put guests in those rooms if everything else was fully booked. Everything else hadn't been fully booked that night. We'd been placed in room 218 deliberately. presumably because it was easier than turning us away to a competitor. The motel reopened 2 months later after making the repairs. I check their reviews sometimes. Most people have no idea how close they might have come to not waking up. And I think about the person who scratched that warning behind the toilet, the person who wrote on the mirror. Maybe they'd felt the symptoms, headache, dizziness, nausea, and realized something was wrong. Maybe they got out in time and tried to warn others. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe those messages were their last act before they lost consciousness. Either way, I owe them my life. I'm a long-haul truck driver, have been for 12 years. I'm 44 now, based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and I haul freight all over the eastern United States. The money's good. I make around $70,000 a year, but the lifestyle's rough. You're away from home for weeks at a time, sleeping in your cab or cheap motels, eating gas station food, and dealing with exhaustion. Most drivers have their regular stops, motels where you know you'll get a clean room and a decent night's sleep without any hassles. But sometimes you end up in unfamiliar territory, and that's when things can get weird. This happened in July 2022. I was hauling a load from Atlanta to Buffalo, New York. The route took me through Tennessee, Kentucky, and into Ohio. By the time I hit southern Ohio, I'd been driving for 11 hours straight and legally needed to stop for my mandatory rest period. I pulled off Interstate 77 near a town called Marietta, right on the Ohio River. Found a motel called the Riverview Lodge. It was a budget place, one of those independent motels that's barely hanging on, competing with the big chains. But it was cheap, $48 for the night, and that's what mattered. I checked in around 11 p.m. The clerk was a young guy, early 20s, who barely looked up from his phone when I walked in. He ran my credit card, gave me a key to room 7, and went back to scrolling. Room 7 was on the ground floor, 3 doors down from the office. I parked my rig in the lot. There were only 2 other vehicles there, both cars, and went inside. The room was dated but functional. 1 double bed, a TV that still had a VCR built in, a small table with 2 chairs. I dropped my duffel bag, took a shower, and called my wife Denise back in Atlanta. We talked for about 20 minutes. She told me about her day. She works as a school administrator, and I told her I'd be in Buffalo by tomorrow night, and then home by the weekend. Normal conversation. We said I love you and hung up around 11:45 p.m. I was settling into bed, watching the news, when the room phone rang. Not my cell phone, the landline on the nightstand. I almost didn't answer it. Who calls a motel room phone at midnight? But I figured maybe it was the front desk with some issue. I picked up. Hello? Heavy breathing on the other end. Not like prank call heavy breathing, but labored, wheezing breathing, like someone who'd just run a marathon or was having trouble getting air. Hello? I said again. Who is this? The breathing continued for maybe 10 seconds. Then a voice, male, raspy, barely above a whisper. Help me. Then the line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, my heart racing. That was weird. Really weird. I hung up and stared at the phone, half expecting it to ring again. It did. 30 seconds later. Same number, the front desk, according to the display. I answered. Yeah? Breathing again, same labored, desperate breathing. Then the voice. Please, help me. Room 12. The line went dead again. Room 12. I walked to my window and looked out. The motel was an L shape. I was in room 7, which was on the shorter leg of the L. Room 12 would be around the corner, on the longer section facing the river. I should have called the front desk. Should have told the clerk what was happening and let him handle it. But something about that voice, the desperation in it, made me feel like time mattered. Like whoever was calling needed help immediately. I pulled on my jeans and boots and went outside. The parking lot was poorly lit, just a couple of overhead lights that cast weak yellow pools of illumination. I walked around the corner to the long section of the building. Room 12 was near the far end. The lights were off inside, curtains drawn. I knocked on the door. Hello? Someone called from this room asking for help. No answer. I knocked harder. I'm going to get the manager if you don't answer. Still nothing. But I could hear something inside, faint, but definitely there, the same wheezing, labored breathing I'd heard on the phone. I ran back to the office. The young clerk was still there, still on his phone. "Hey, someone in room 12 is in distress. They called my room asking for help. We need to check on them." He looked annoyed. "Room 12's vacant, has been all week." I heard someone breathing inside. "Please, just check." He sighed, grabbed a master key, and followed me to room 12. He unlocked the door and pushed it open, flipped on the light. The room was empty, completely empty. No luggage, no personal items, bed made, bathroom dark. It looked like housekeeping had just finished cleaning it. "See?" the clerk said. "Vacant." I heard breathing, and someone called me from this room. Rooms don't call other rooms. Guests call from room to room, but there's no guest here. We stood there for a moment. Then I noticed the phone on the nightstand. I walked over and picked up the receiver, put it to my ear. Dial tone. "Check the call log," I said. He rolled his eyes, but picked up his phone and called the front desk from inside room 12. Then he walked back to the office to check the system. I waited in room 12, feeling increasingly uneasy. The room smelled musty, like it had been closed up for a while. But there was another smell underneath, something chemical, like cleaning products mixed with something else, something organic and rotten. The clerk came back. "The system shows 2 calls from room 12 to room 7 tonight, 11:51 p.m. and 11:53 p.m. So someone was here, or the phone's malfunctioning. Old wiring in these places can cause cross connections." But he didn't sound convinced. He checked the bathroom, the closet, under the bed. Nothing. As we were leaving, I noticed something on the floor near the bed. A small stain on the carpet, brown and dried, about the size of a dinner plate. "What's that?" The clerk looked at it and his face went pale. "I don't know." We left and he locked the door. "I'll report this to the owner in the morning," he said. "Probably just faulty wiring. Try to get some sleep." But I couldn't sleep. I sat up in room 7 with the TV on, watching the door, glancing at the phone. Around 2 a.m., it rang again. I answered. "Who is this?" The breathing was weaker now, more ragged. The voice was barely audible. "Why, didn't you help me?" "I tried. I came to your room. There was nobody there." Room 12. The breathing stopped. The line went silent, but it wasn't a dial tone. It was the silence of an open line with nobody on the other end. I hung up and immediately called the front desk. The clerk answered. "Did someone just call from room 12 again?" I asked. "Hold on." I heard keyboard clicking. "Yeah, 2:04 a.m. Call from room 12 to room 7. "I'm checking out. Right now, I don't care if it's 2 a.m. I'm leaving." I packed my stuff, checked out, and got back in my truck. Drove to a Flying J truck stop 10 miles down the road and slept in my cab. The next morning, I Googled Riverview Lodge, Marietta, Ohio. Found a news article from 2018. Guest found dead at Riverview Lodge after 3 days. The article said a man named Kenneth Morrison, 56, had checked into room 12 and died of a heart attack sometime during the night. His body wasn't discovered for 3 days because the motel staff thought he'd checked out. The room had been cleaned and rented to another guest before anyone realized Morrison's truck was still in the parking lot, and his personal belongings were missing. The motel had been sued by Morrison's family for negligence. They'd settled out of court. I called the Marietta Police Department that morning and told them about the phone calls. The officer I spoke to sounded skeptical, but said he'd send someone to check it out. Later that day, I got a call back. They'd inspected room 12, found that the phone line had been disconnected years ago after the Kenneth Morrison incident. The jack was physically removed from the wall. There was no way for that phone to make calls. But the call logs from the front desk system showed that calls had originated from room 12's line 3 times. To my room. The officer said it was probably a system glitch or someone hacking the phone system as a prank, but he didn't sound like he believed it. I've driven past that exit probably 50 times since then. Never stopped at the Riverview Lodge again. But sometimes, late at night when I'm driving through Ohio, my phone will ring. No caller ID. I'll answer and hear breathing on the other end, and a voice, faint and desperate, asking why I didn't help. I don't have an answer.